your heart is in a place where you're trying to compete and just impress other people, and you're trying to like impress coaches, and that's what your main goal is, then that's not necessarily the right intentions. And I think if you set the intentions of like, I want to be the best that I can be, I want to push myself to the physical limits, I want to put myself in position to achieve success in the long term, whatever that may be, and you put yourself in a position to push yourself to the absolute max, whatever that is in your life, then that's setting those intentions in the right place. And I think it's just following through on what you said you were going to do in the first place as well.
That was Brock Kelly today on the Running Effect podcast, and I'm your host, Dominic Schlueter. Today's podcast is actually brought to you by Garmin. Garmin is a watch company that I've been using legitimately since 7th grade. I think I've owned 4 or 5 of their watches, and they are the premier leader in GPS running watches. I currently use and rock with the Garmin Forerunner 265. This watch has blown me away. Very simply put, having music on your wrist, putting in your AirPods, and going for a run with your favorite tunes or your favorite podcast without having to bring your phone is a game changer. On the more technical side of things, the advanced training metrics and recovery insights have been a game changer. Most accurate sleep monitor I've ever used. And then through the Garmin Connect app, you can really dive deep into your training. And through that, you can make calculated decisions on how to train in that specific day. And that can inform what you do in training, which ultimately will make you a better runner, and your races will improve as a result. If you're serious about your running, check out Garmin's amazing line of watches. Again, I have the Garmin Forerunner 265. I think Brock, as he speaks to in this conversation, has the 965, but they're all amazing. They're all incredible. They all have a bunch of unique abilities that I've never seen before on the running watch spectrum. I've left a link in the show notes to Garmin Forerunner's line of watches so that you guys can check them out, see which one works best for you, but literally cannot recommend Garmin enough. This is the most true representation of me. I've been using their watches, again, since 7th grade. I've tried a bunch of other watch companies. Garmin is far and away the best, in my opinion, and I can't wait to continue to train with my new Garmin Forerunner 265. In terms of today's conversation, I have the privilege of speaking with Brock Kelly. If you're not familiar with him, he's been on the podcast twice before. I always love my conversations with Brock. He's an absolute legend, absolute stud. He runs for Mississippi Collegiate, if I'm not mistaken, a D2 university out of the great state of Mississippi. He's very accomplished both on the track and on the grass, but also on social media, where he's kind of become a viral sensation with his The Daily Mile series. This indoor and outdoor season is season 3 of the Daily Mile, and today's conversation centers around Brock's final 2 seasons in NCAA and how he's preparing for them, how he's training with Garmin, and yeah, just his mindset, his beliefs around 2025, all the things he wants to accomplish. If you guys enjoy this one, share it with a friend, hit the 5-star review button, hit the follow button so you never miss another episode. With all those notes aside, enjoy this amazing conversation with the ever so insightful Brock Kelly. Mr. Daily Mile, Mr. Brock Kelly, welcome back to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
Dude, I am excited to be here. I am so stoked to be back on. I think this is my 3rd time on the podcast.
Charm, baby.
3rd time. Come on. That's amazing. So
he's joining an exclusive club. You did say this like 10 seconds ago, but you seem to have a lot of energy this morning, a lot of creative excitement. I think people can feel that from your recent content. What's going through Brock Kelly's mind these days?
Dude, I'm just excited to be making stuff. You know, I've been reading Creativity Inc., which is like the story of Pixar, and it was written by Ed Catmull, who's the president of Pixar, and he like talks about how the creative process at Pixar worked and how he was able to create like one of the greatest creative environments, and he like outlines all the principles in the book as he goes throughout it. And they're like, throughout this book, there's so many quotes about like the importance of failure and how like if you're not willing to take any risk in what you're doing, then you're not going to have any results in the end, and how whenever you have success, it's so hard, it's so easy to try to just continue to rely on what's worked in the past as opposed to what's actually going to be innovative and creative and make something new in the future. And so I'm like in this position where I'm like, okay, for so much of my time as like making content and stuff, it's been like, okay, what have I learned in the past? And then whenever something stuck, like for instance, the Daily Mile, like whenever that format stuck, I kind of just stuck to that format for a while. And now I'm like, okay, it's a good format, but how can I modify it? How can I add a new breath of creativity into it? How can I also take the stuff I'm doing on the Daily Mile as well as YouTube and just like take it to another level? And so I haven't exactly figured that out yet. And I think I'm trying to remember one of the quotes he says in the book specifically goes back to he pretty much just says like the art of discovery is that you don't know where you're going whenever you start. And so because you don't know where you're going whenever you start, like that's the beauty of finding something new and finding a new destination that you're trying to get to. And I think I'm just kind of in the middle of that creative process of coming up with something new and something exciting and something innovative. And I'm just on the cusp of like making something great, I think. And I don't know, I don't even know what it is yet. That's the beauty of it, and that's why I'm excited.
That quote, which is so good, you don't know where you're going whenever you start. How would you relate that to these final 2 seasons of running? How would you relate that quote to your own current pursuits within the sport of running?
Yeah, I like I said, I don't really know what this season entails, and because I don't know what this season entails, I am just showing up every day and trying to have as much fun as I can with it, understanding that these are my last two indoor and outdoor track seasons ever, pretty much. I mean, I might run on the track again unattached sometime in the future, but understanding that these are my last two chances. And with that in mind, it's like I don't know where I'm going to end up. I don't know what the times are going to be, but through this whole process, I want to have my priorities straight to the point where I'm like, okay, I just want to enjoy the sport and push myself to the furthest limit that I possibly can. And with that, whatever the results are, will that just it's going to be a result of what happens for me loving the sport and pushing myself to my physical limits. So,
Do you ever reflect on how, no hate at all, but I think you'll agree with me, like you're not going to be the next Jakob Ingebrigtsen or Josh Kerr, but yet
yeah,
you have such a population of people who deeply care about your running results to an extent that they probably never have about a D3 guy. How often
yeah.
do you think about how much of a beautiful community you've formulated in terms of like, wow, people like tangibly care about how I do the workouts, if I'm healthy or not, and what I do on the track these next 2 seasons will actually have tangible impact on people's lives.
Yeah, well, first off, I'm a D2 guy, not a D3 guy.
You're
So
so right. You're so right.
I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
Cut. Just
Cut.
kidding.
Yeah, we got to cut
Just
this out.
kidding. No, I make
No,
mistakes, everyone. It happens. Good to
no,
be
I think
wrong.
it's very interesting because it's not like I'm not like the fastest in D2. I'm not the fastest in D3. I'm not the fastest in D1. I'm not the fastest in the NCAA by any means. I am a little bit above average, and I think because of that, people are like looking at the times and they're like, okay, this is he's not like the fastest, but he's like showing up and trying to push himself, and because of that, it's been able to create a community of people who are like, wait, I want to kind of like adopt that same mentality because most people that are in the NCAA are never going to be at the top of the NCAA. Like they're never going to be one of those top guys. They're never going to go on to the professional level and run in Diamond League races and stuff like this. So whenever I can just show up and I can be like, here's where I am, here's where I'm trying to go. Like I don't know what the end result's going to be. I think it inspires people because they realize, wait a second, this isn't so much about the results in the end as it is about making sure that you have the right priorities and like where you're trying to go. And I just said the word priorities like really weird, but making sure you have the right priorities and where you're trying to go. And so often, like I get messages from people every now and then, and they're like, hey, like how can I impress college coaches or how can I impress like my friends or my current high school coach? I'm like, dude, you have to focus on enjoying the sport and doing it from a place of love before you can try to like the results that impress people come from athletes who do it from a place of love for the sport. And they do it because they love pushing themselves to the physical limits and they love the sport of running. And because they have the right like intentions behind what they're doing in that regard, what ends up happening is those results in the end are just that just happens naturally as a result. It's not necessarily it's like their motives are right. So what happens as a result naturally is that they run those times that impress coaches, that get them into colleges, that allow people to be recruited by D1, D2, D3, whatever it is, and to go and run at the next level or to go pro whenever they get out of school. It's just kind of like if you allow your love for the sport to guide you through the sport, then that's where the results are going to come, where you're going to get recruited by colleges. And of course you have to work hard and you have to be willing to push yourself and you have to learn what that looks like. But I think in so many ways people get priorities mixed up. It's like the goal shouldn't be to impress coaches. The goal should be to reach your potential and run the best that you can and be the best athlete you can be. And then a result of that is that maybe those results do impress coaches, but you can't have it can't be backwards. It has to just that's the way it should go. And so I think
So
that
good.
yeah, and I think that because I'm like a D2 guy or whatever, it's like yeah, like I think I can just speak to people kind of where they are because it's like I didn't really come from a whole lot. Like I was like a 16-minute 5K guy in high school, and it's like okay, now I'm here and I'm like I've gotten a little bit faster. It's like maybe I'm not a 13-minute 5K guy now, but
You're more relatable because of that, though. And I think
yeah,
that's why figures like you or Zach Levitt back in the day, people clung on to more. Off of what you were saying there, though, great phrase I heard once. People are talking about people in the podcasting space and how Joe Rogan's the king of it. And so people try to become Joe Rogan.
yeah,
And this person said, the best you can be is the second best Joe Rogan because you will never beat Joe Rogan at being Joe Rogan. And it goes
yeah,
to what you were saying about that excellence piece of like, become the best version of yourself within the sport and coaches will notice rather than trying to do things for the end result or the end outcome. And a phrase that stemmed from this thought was like, don't be the best, be the only. Because again, if you're playing the game of like trying to be the best, you're competing against people who you have no control over their personal systems and processes and their own outcomes. You only have control over like what you can do in your own outcomes. And so instead of trying to be the best within a sector or a group or a team or a NCAA division, like just be the best version of yourself. Like insert your name and be like, I want to be, you're the only, you're the odds of you existing as you are 400 trillion to one. Like, how often do we use that as a competitive advantage? Nearly never. Like if someone tried to, and this is the beauty part of the creative world is like someone could literally steal your daily mile idea and I'm so confident they wouldn't be as successful. Like sure, people have like taken that idea and like created their own kind of subset of things that have been successful, but if someone just copy and pasted the name and like started doing it but their own life, like it would be the second best daily mile there is because it's not the daily mile. So don't be the best, be the only. I think is such a good phrase.
yeah. And I think you can go back to Pixar with that same thing of like they are successful because don't base their they don't base their success on their past. Like they've been successful in the past because they're always innovating, always creating new ideas, and because they're constantly innovating and constantly creating new ideas, what ends up happening is they're not basing their success now on those past ideas as much as they're basing like where they're going. It's like not their success isn't based on what they've done in the past as much as it is on where they're trying to go in the future. And I think whenever you kind of have those priorities straight of okay, we're not trying to recreate things that have already been done. We're not trying to just take bits and pieces that have worked in the past and create something that's kind of creative. We're trying to create something completely new and innovative. And that's what Pixar was so good at, and that's why they were able to be number one. So if somebody goes in, so if Disney went in and tried to copy directly what Pixar was doing at the time, then they would be the second best, like you're saying, and they would just be like the second best Pixar because it's not, you can't just copy directly what somebody else is doing. You have to figure out what works in your own world and be innovative and creative in that process. And so I just I love the book I'm reading right now. If you can't tell, and it's had a lot of it's breathed a lot of creative life into like my process, I think. So
This past week, I had the privilege of giving the introduction speech to Corey Leslie, who you might know the name of because he used to be a coach at Tin Man Elite. He now coaches the Under Armour Baltimore crew in Baltimore for Under Armour. Yeah, he was inducted into like I'll butcher it because the name's technically different, but it was basically like the Ohio High School Hall of Fame because he was like a stud. Anyways, I gave his introduction speech, and one of the things that I wrote within it was, and I believe this so deeply, who you become through the pursuit of excellence within the sport of running is more important than what you do within the sport. Who you become through the pursuit of excellence within the sport of running is more important than what you do within the sport. For you, through the pursuit of your own excellence within the sport of running, who do you feel like it's made through this process? Like, who do you think you've become through this pursuit of excellence within running throughout your collegiate career?
I mean, I think it's just been There's definitely been a lot of things that I've learned about myself that go far beyond just the times and like the breakthroughs I've had with the times I've run. And if I were just to define myself by numbers, which my coach right now, my like the distance coach at my school, Mississippi College, he always talks about. He's like, your numbers, the numbers you run right now don't matter. He's like, what you do here for the team, what you do for these people that are around you, the legacy you leave to the guys that are on the team right now, and the impact you make on them is so much more valuable than any time you've ever run. Nobody's gonna remember what time you ran. They might remember for a couple years, and then they're not gonna remember. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, like Brock ran, he ran here. Like, oh, what did he do here? Well, he ran and he like made the videos and he was able to help people through that process, and that's what you're remembered by. That's the legacy you're remembered by. And so I think it does go. It transcends far beyond what you have done as far as times go. Because if it just comes down to like, oh yeah, I ran 4 minutes in the mile, then it's like, oh, that's really cool. You ran 4 minutes in the mile, but what does that matter? Like, who did you impact in doing that? Who did you inspire? What were you saying along the way? What were you? How were you pouring into others through that process? And my coach talks about that a lot. And it's like the legacy you leave is way more than just the times you're running. And I think because he has that perspective and tells us that all the time, we kind of realize that, wait, this is like a serious thing. And he used to be an athlete on the team like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And now he's like the distance coach. And so it's kind of like, it's a complete shift. And he's like, the times you run don't really matter. It's like, what legacy did you leave and how were you able to pour into the other people around you? And I think through the process of pursuing my own excellence in the sport, like through the process of trying to be the best athlete I can be, I've been able to pour into the guys around me. And I'm like, this is what it looks like to go for it. Like, this is what it looks like to hurt in the middle of a 3K. This is what it looks like to like give it your all in practice. Whenever you finish and you're like sneezing and coughing and you feel like crap and you're throwing up on the side, like this is what it looks like. And that whenever you can set that example for the people around you, I think it transcends just the times you've run. So that's kind of my take on that, I guess.
Super good.
Yeah.
Off of that, love the saying that people will forget everything you did, what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. I heard that quote a few years ago, and I think it's very true. And it goes far beyond just your teammates or people who watch you at races. It's like the viewer at home, the people who know your name. Like, what do people feel and think when they hear the name Dominic Schluter or Brock Kelly? And that's like our legacy, rather than like, oh, Dominic made 500 podcasts or posted this many times on Instagram, or Brock ran this time, or as you were saying, like won this race. It's like people forget about all that sort of stuff. Like maybe there are some diehard track fans who know this, but like I could not tell you what Jakob Ingebrigtsen ran the Olympic 5K final in, but I can tell you how I felt watching it. Yeah. Like he was dominant. It was beautiful. Like he made me feel those things. Could care less about the time. So I think it's totally more about how you make people feel, and specifically the people that you truly care about, rather than what you actually accomplish. Kind of bridging the gap between this and continuing discussion of your own running. The daily mile we've talked about extensively on the podcast. I think the first time we talked was right before you started it, or like in the midst of it before it kind of blew you up. And then the second time we kind of discussed the injury, X, Y, and Z. For those at home who are unfamiliar with you or just the daily mile, can you give the brief Spark Notes version on each season of the daily mile? 1, 2, and now I think we're in the third one. And what's different about this season?
So first season of the daily mile was just, I was bored, had a stress fracture, and I wanted to make videos. And so I had been making YouTube videos all summer. I was working for 10 Man Elite that summer. This was 2 summers ago. I was running like 90 to 100 miles a week, just like building fitness up in Boulder, Colorado. And I felt incredible. Came back, got a stress fracture, was out for the rest of my cross country season. And then I was sitting there and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to make YouTube videos about anymore. I was making videos about running and like, how am I going to do this? And so started making Instagram videos. And initially what started as something I was going to do for like a week, maybe became something I was going to do for like 30 days. And then pretty soon became 45 and 50 and made it all the way to 100 days in this series. And through this series, it documented my journey of being injured, unable to run, cross training, swimming in the pool every day. That's where the name The Daily Mile came from. I'd go to the pool, swim a mile every day. And through this process, I was able to build back up to running like a 5K in under 15 minutes. And that was like kind of the pinnacle of where it ended up going. That was like season 1. Season 2 was kind of like my summer of training, and it was out in Boulder, Colorado again. It was this past summer. I was getting ready for my like final cross country season. And so this season ended up having a lot of ups and downs, but most of the daily mile itself was like, there were like 50 something episodes probably. And it was all about just like my summer of training and what I was doing and the runs I was on. And at the same time, I was kind of like battling the feelings of like stress fractures and stuff again. So it was kind of like hard to, I knew I needed to run higher mileage, but it was hard to find that balance in training. And I was just trying to make videos every day and also like talk about this process of like how am I training, I'm having to navigate it at the same time. So I'm like talking about this thing that I'm having to navigate, and I just kind of took people through that journey. And then cross country season was okay. It wasn't that great. It kind of got hurt some, and I got sick a lot, and it just, I think I was just stressed, and because I was stressed through that whole process, it ended up being kind of took the life out of me a lot. And cross country has never been something I've been great at, and so it was like I couldn't really find a training method that was working. I kept getting hurt, I kept getting sick, and it was just kind of like towards the end of the season, it was just not great. And so track was just around the corner, and I was like, well, let's start another daily mile and let's talk about this like final track season. And so through the winter of training over the past, I don't know, 8 weeks, 9 weeks or whatever, I kind of started a series. I started the season 3 back up 2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that. And it's just been documenting my training. And over the winter, I was making YouTube videos and stuff. And now I'm just getting back into the rhythm of racing, and it's been fun. It's been exciting to make content again and just make something every day. And it really gets your mind going, and it gets you like, for me, it gets me going, it gets my mind going, it gets me excited to make something new and find a new creative way to create something. And so it's that's kind of where I am right now. But we're on season 3, just documenting this final indoor and outdoor track season. I don't know if I'm gonna make it all the way to outdoor. I might switch back over to YouTube full time and just make a bunch of vlogs at meets and stuff and do that. But right now, like, we're at least gonna go through like the indoor season to conference championship and stuff, or maybe I'll take an intermission after conference. We'll figure it out, but still trying to figure that out. But that's discovery, right? Like, you don't know where you're gonna go, but we'll know whenever we get there. So
What do you feel like makes this season, this third season, special as opposed to the first two?
dude, I'm just having fun. I like, school isn't that hard right now. I'm in the master's program, and the classes like meet usually on the like in the evenings on some days. Like Wednesday nights, I have a class, and then another class online. So I'm not super stressed about school right now, and I'm just kind of like, I've always been a track guy. Like, I've always been 3,000 meter, 1,500 meter, mile. Those have always been my specialties. And now I'm getting back into that rhythm of running those races again. And I have an excitement about that. And I feel very excited about running those distances again. And it's just so much fun. It's something that I haven't done in literally like 2 years because I was injured all last season. And so now to get back out here and to run some more fast stuff, I'm like, this is where I belong. I love this. And I think that's what makes it different. It's the energy around the whole thing. So
Talking about your training, I know you recently got a new Garmin watch, and I personally got a new Garmin watch. I want to say like last month. I've been blown away by some of the features. So I want to just talk about your training generally, as well as like how you've used Garmin in this training block in these final 2 seasons for you. Just first question for you: what training feature, of which there are so many on these new Garmin watches, have blown you away the most?
dude, I'm just impressed by the interface itself and how much there is. Like, there's so many things on Garmin that I just didn't even know existed, and I like am scrolling through and I find a new page like every day. Is what it feels like. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this like training status stuff was here. Like, this is cool. And I'll click on it and it'll take me to like a different page with like 4 more pages. And I'm like, dude, this is so much data and so much information I can use to like work on my training. But I think one of the biggest things, I've just like looked at how like productive my training is and how recovered I am, and like the body battery is one of the most interesting things I've seen, because it's like I'll start the day at 70 for the body battery, and then, which depending on where my sleep is, it could go up to like 80 or 90 whenever I start the day, and then it'll like decrease down to 20 by the end of the day, and then it'll recharge whenever I sleep. And so it's kind of interesting to see that fluctuation, and to, it's not like I'm necessarily going to change my training, but it is good to know mentally, like going into a workout of like, okay, I probably will feel more tired today, but we're gonna fight through it. We're gonna like work, make sure this happen, make sure the workout gets done, and then we'll work on recovering really well after. And so that's the way I've kind of used like a lot of the training features in Garmin is like, okay, it tells me I'm probably not gonna feel the greatest in the workout today. That's fine. I'm just gonna go into the workout. I'm gonna get the work done. I'm gonna do everything I can. Maybe I will feel good whenever I get started, and we're gonna get the stuff done, but we're gonna recover more after. We're gonna focus, like prioritize recovery more after. And I think those are some of the features I've been using the most. And also the track mode is pretty sick. I know my last watch had a
No
track.
weird lines on Strava anymore.
Yeah, no, I know my last watch had a track mode, but then this one, it's just like it's all in meters, which is kind of like really cool. The way it does it, it's all down to the meter, and I'm like, oh, this is unique.
For the wow, I just butchered that so hard. For the body battery, there we go. And for like the training status, how accurate do you feel like those have been for you within your own training? Like when it's at like 20, do you actually feel drained, or are you like, no, like this is tweaking right now?
Like usually when it's at 20, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of tired right now. I've been working all day. I like made a video, edited the video, and because of that, there was like higher levels of stress there, and then also like a workout and stuff. And so you'll see that like by the end of the day, whenever it says I feel like 20, I usually do feel about like 20. And sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's higher. It just depends on the day. But I feel like it's been pretty accurate in predicting that and like telling me kind of it's like you should listen to your body. You should listen to how you feel. And if the watch tells you you should feel some way, like don't just feel that way. But having that insight of like, okay, this is how it thinks that my body is going to feel. I'm going to use this information as I take it. Like I'm going to take this information. I'm just going to apply it to my training. If I do feel bad today, it makes sense. If I don't feel bad today, then maybe it's not accurate. But I think it has been pretty accurate in the days that I've used it. And yeah.
I would definitely say the same for me. And one of those things that I did want to ask you about, because I don't know if you still use one, but I think you used to use a Whoop, and I used to use a Whoop for like
Hmm.
roughly like 8 or 9 months. And Whoop, the cool thing about Whoop is like it's just for recovery and sleep. So you'd think those features would be like top of the line. What I discovered with that was a lot of times it would just, I feel like, inaccurately read my sleep or recovery readings, where I felt like I would wake up feeling totally normal and totally rested, and it would say I went to sleep at like a way different time than I did, and it would
Yeah.
say I was like drained, and I was like, I feel great today.
Like I feel
And I
fine.
think, yeah, I think a really cool thing with my Garmin watch personally, I think I have the Garmin 400 265, is the sleep seems like really accurate. The stages seem like really, really accurate. And it's crazy that it has that in the context of all these other features. What's
Hmm.
your personal experience been like with, yeah, the sleep specifically, if you've looked into any of that data
Yeah,
specifically in comparison to other things in the past?
I've looked into it some. I haven't like studied the sleep too heavily. I think last night I had like 2.5 hours of deep sleep and like an hour and a half of REM sleep, and the rest was light. I think I slept 6.5 hours last night or something like that. So I didn't have as much sleep as I'd like to last night, but we're here, and that's how it goes. But overall, like it's been pretty accurate. I've found at least.
One last thing, just talking about your new Garmin watch, the music on it. I know you have teammates. I know you run with people a lot. For
Hmm.
me, as a little loner for the most part in Columbus, Ohio, at least when I run, I'm just like fitting it in between work and other things. I always used to, and I'm not the biggest fan of listening to music on runs every day. Like, I think
Yeah.
I love the solitude that comes with running, but I have found, especially these winter months, it can be nice to have a little extra motivation. Carrying your phone is such a pain, and you don't realize how much of a pain it is until you get music on your watch. Have you used this feature? I think I texted you about this. Like, that for me was a game changer of just like, wow, there's a watch out there that's not an Apple Watch, that's crappy, that has music on it and all the features that you'd want from a training perspective. All I need is my AirPods. This is crazy.
Yeah,
Like, I
I
literally
haven't
just
used that yet.
download my Spotify. Are you serious? Oh, it's
I
so
haven't yet.
cracked, dude. It's so
I
cracked.
I have a teammate that'll use it all the time. He has I think he has the same watch I have. I think he has like the Garmin 965, and he's always got AirPods in whenever he's in the middle of a workout, and he's just like running. Even like our long run the other day, we did a long run last Saturday, and during that long run, I looked over and he had AirPods in. And I was like, okay, yeah, he's just locked in. I don't
Dude,
know what
it's
he's
so
listening to.
nice. You just connect it to your Spotify, and then you like pick what podcast or playlist you want to download onto the
Yeah,
watch, connect straight to your headphones. It's crazy, dude. Technology's insane.
technology's cool.
Yeah, super cool. Speaking more on your training, how do you feel like
Mhm.
this indoor and outdoor season has shifted compared to other seasons in the past? And what's kind of the conversation with your coach in terms of getting you in the right spot to hit your goals? And what are those biggest goals on your mind at the moment?
Dude, so I am back. I know I said back like 2 summers ago, I was trying to build up mileage. And then last summer, I thought I still needed to build up mileage like this past summer. And I'm starting to find out, like I said, I'm more of a middle distance guy. I'm more of like a 1,500, 3,000 meter guy. And I knew this like 2 years ago before I started building up summer mileage. And then I was like, well, maybe if I build up mileage, I'll be like really good at the middle distance events. So that was kind of the thought process. And then I ended up getting hurt. And then I was like, well, I need to train for cross country at this point. And it was like, now I have to go run 10K and I probably need to build up. And so it was just kind of like this weird in between phase of like, I can run about 60 miles a week. And then my shin kind of starts hurting. So it was like, let's just keep it right here. And that was like my mentality throughout most of cross. But now I am kind of going back to how I trained like 2 years ago, which was 30 to 50 miles a week, something like that. And a lot of it is just a lot of it is threshold runs. I hit the workouts hard. We'll do 7.5 miles worth of threshold work on Tuesdays. We'll come back on Wednesday and we'll hit like a medium long run where we'll log 10 to 12 miles. And then sometimes we'll throw in another workout on like a Friday if we aren't doing if we don't race that weekend. And so that's what a lot of my training has been. And the easy days have been like on Mondays I'll do like a 5 mile easy day running 6:30 a mile. Tuesday will be like the hard threshold workout. Wednesday will be the medium long run. Sometimes we'll tempo that. Thursday will be easy. Friday will be workout or easy. Saturday will be a race or long run. And then Sundays I'm completely off. And so that's like 6 days a week, 30 to 50 miles a week, depending on what the week looks like, with higher level of intensity in my training. And that is like the perfect balance for me. Like it is, I feel like I'm getting really fit. I feel like I'm building fitness way better than I was in cross season. I feel like I'm honing in on the skills of focusing and really digging into the training in a way that I haven't in a long time. And that to me is just super exciting because I feel like I can step on the line of a mile race or a 3K race and just feel really strong. And I think it's just kind of, it's just what's been working for me. And I can't really run slow for long distances because my form just isn't right for that. And that's what causes my shin to act up and to hurt. And so I just run a little bit faster for shorter distances and it builds fitness the same way. And so a lot of people, even including myself, like I've had misconceptions in the past that you have to run like longer distances and you need to run slower on all your easy days. And I've had those beliefs before, but now I'm like, okay, if I can run 6:30 pace and my heart rate's the same as if I were running 7:30 pace, then why would I run 7:30 pace? Like that's where my mind is right now. And I've been able to build fitness really well off of this, which is completely different than what I was doing for the last year and a half or so, but it's very similar to what I was doing freshman, sophomore, and part of my junior year. So I'm feeling strong, feeling fit, excited for track right now. Like it's gonna be huge.
Very Brock Kelly question, but what's your intention these days in training?
Dude, like I said, to have fun, to but to not negotiate with myself in like those workouts. So like I said, we'll do 7.5 miles worth of threshold. So maybe we'll start with 2 miles at threshold pace, which for me is about 5 minutes a mile, and then we'll do ons and offs, or maybe we'll do some more threshold with mile reps or whatever it is. But it's like if I have 7.5 miles worth of threshold work, I'm going to run 7.5 miles of threshold. I'm not going to run 6.5. I'm not going to run 6. If I have a 13-mile long run or a 15-mile long run, I'm going to run that 13 or 15-mile long run. Not going to negotiate with it. I'm going to get the work done, and then I'm going to walk off, and that's going to be that. On the days where it matters, I want the work to be done correctly, and I don't want to negotiate with that work. And the less I negotiate in those times, whenever I get to training, whenever I get to racing, like there's no negotiations that happen in the middle of the race. It's not like, oh, like maybe I'll slow down right here. Oh, I'm hurting really bad. Like, no, it's like you've trained your mind over and over again through practice, through training, through these sessions, through making it through these sessions that were really hard, that were really challenging, that pushed your body to the limits. You made it through these sessions before. now you're in a race, you're in that same environment, and you know how to push yourself. And that's how you build momentum, and that's how you build confidence. And so the intentionality behind what I'm doing is making sure that I'm building that momentum and confidence by just focusing on not negotiating with anything that I'm doing. So that's kind of where I stand right now.
How would you define the word intention, and how can one listening benefit by being more intentional in their day-to-day life and within their training?
Yeah, I feel like intentionality is it's where your heart is in what you're doing. Kind of goes back to what I was saying. If your heart is in a place where you're trying to compete and just impress other people, and you're trying to like impress coaches, and that's what your main goal is, then that's not necessarily the right intentions. And I think if you set the intentions of like, I want to be the best that I can be, I want to push myself to the physical limits, I want to put myself in position to achieve success in the long term, whatever that may be, and you put yourself in a position to push yourself to the absolute max, whatever that is in your life, then that's setting those intentions in the right place. And I think it's just following through on what you said you were going to do in the first place as well. And so it's like setting the goal of, I want to be the best that I can be, and I want to do it from a place of love for the sport. I want to do it from a place of, this is where I'm working from, this is how I'm going to do it, and making sure that you're following through on that and working from those intentions, working from that place, as opposed to like, I'm working from this place, but I'm actually trying to impress the coach. I'm actually trying to impress my teammates. I'm actually trying to impress my friends. I'm actually trying to, because what ends up happening is all these freaking high schoolers, man. I'm not gonna talk crap. I'm not gonna talk crap on high schoolers, but I get these messages all the time, and they're like, "Man, I feel like so nervous whenever I step on the line. I feel like I'm crippled by the fear of failure. I'm crippled by this feeling of I'm not gonna run well. I'm gonna run terribly." And it's like, dude, who are you trying to impress? Like, why are you crippled by this idea of failure? Like, where are your intentions in these actions that you're taking? You're focusing so much on trying to impress other people that you think that other people's opinions about you are going to change whenever you don't run well. And so you have to completely realign where your intentions are and work from a place of, I want to be the best that I can be, and I want to work from a place of love for the sport to push myself to the physical limits that are in front of me and to be the best that I can be. And whenever you set those boundaries around what you're doing, you're no longer confined to what other people are saying. It doesn't matter like that your coach, it doesn't matter like what your coach says, what your family says, what your friends say. What matters, which you can compete for those things. You can compete, like, if you want to run for your coach, run for your coach. If you want to run for your grandpa, like, run for your grandpa. Like, that's those are great things, but don't let that be like the thing that cripples you from actually achieving your potential. Like, go out there, have fun, and try to push yourself to the limits. Explore what those limits are. And that's where it's that so many people just get that wrong. And it's just it kind of just, I get those questions all the time. People are asking me, they're like, "Oh, dude, I feel so nervous. I feel like I'm just on the starting line. I don't know, and then I get into the race and I can't perform the way that I know I can. I can't perform the way that my training's telling me I can." And I'm like, "Dude, you get the run, just run." You know,
It's so funny. I mean, the simple response to that, and don't take offense to this if you're a listener, but it's true. No one cares. Truly, no one cares. Like, there are probably, I could count on one hand how many people truly care. Tell me Eliud Kipchoge's last marathon performance and what he placed. I mean, how many people would know that? Like, I know he didn't do that well at the Olympics, but like, I don't really care. Like, he's one of my favorite athletes ever, but it doesn't keep me up at night. And if you're a high schooler listening, no offense, you're not Kipchoge status or anywhere near it. And one of my favorite sayings I came across a few years ago that I think helped me work through this point, because it was something I struggled with back in the day too, was, you'll stop caring about how much people think when you realize how seldom they do. Like, no one's thinking about you. Like, and there are studies to back this up.
That's one of the biggest things that Casey Neistat said.
We way overestimate the extent.
Videos.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it was just Casey Neistat, whenever he was making videos, he was like, nobody cares. He said, I can make a video about whatever and people are going to watch, but nobody really cares because they're so focused on themselves. It's like, dude, just go out there and run the best you can and have fun with what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many studies that show that we way overestimate the extent to which people think about ourselves, and we ruminate and we think that they do. And it's like, for the most part, they don't. And the people whose opinions truly matter don't care. They love you for who you are and not for what you do. And surround yourself with those type of people, and run from a place of freedom and gratitude and joy, and not from a place of fear and anxiety. Because I learned this from a conversation with a mental performance counselor who I'm really good friends with. She said that, like, you can't feel gratitude and fear at the same time. They're two completely separate emotions, and the results in a race from running from a place of gratitude versus fear are almost entirely different. So choose gratitude over fear. um, I think is a takeaway for you in
Yeah.
2025. A lot of people, January is their month where they're like setting direction for the year. And people obviously, anytime they enter a new year, I'm sure yourself included, think like, oh, I want this year to be like the year I break through, the year I like experience all the results I know I can accomplish. What would you say to a listener out there who wants to make 2025 their year?
No, I think if you're gonna make 2025 your year, it comes down to just following through on what you say you're gonna do. It comes down to the intentionality, making sure your heart's in the right posture in what you're doing, as opposed to like what we were talking about earlier, where you're working from a place of like, oh, I want to impress other people. I want to do this so that I can achieve this external thing where I'll look this certain way. It's like, dude, that none of that matters. Like, focus on what you can do and what you can achieve, and focus on becoming the best version of yourself that you can be, and then from that will be the results that you're going for. Like, it might not take you in the exact direction you're trying to go in, but it will take you in a direction that is up, and it'll take you in a direction that's better than where you are right now. And I think if you can set those goals are set those goals with the right intention behind what you're doing, that is really the key to making it all the way through the year and having sustainability in what you're doing. That's what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about balance, because in Pixar, one of the things I posted on my Instagram story the other day, I'm not sure if you saw it, but it was talking about how balance is only found in action. And so the only way to have balance in life is through this action and through movement. Pretty much, you aren't going to find balance by sitting there or just setting a goal and just like not doing anything about it. Like, you're going to find balance by moving forward with what you're doing. And the only balance is a very hard thing to define. And the only way to define balance is through pretty much just feeling it out as you're going, as you're moving. Move forward, feel it out, and like that's the key to balance and sustainability, is just movement. And that's what the
Such
daily
a good
mile
thought.
was in so many ways, because it was like every day I'm taking action. Every day I'm taking action for 100 days. And that was like, okay, there's balance in that. And there was also like, how do I create balance in this? But you find balance, you find different things that you forgot about, and it creates balance in your life through movement toward the goals that you set. So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but
Oh, 100%. Some great thoughts there that I'll definitely be chewing on in the week to come. Wrapping up this conversation for you, obviously, final season that we've made known. What is the legacy you want to leave behind at Mississippi College? Hopefully, I got that right.
yeah,
And what would you have to accomplish in these final 2 seasons to walk away feeling good about the end of your collegiate career?
dude, I just want to have fun with what I'm doing. I want to show my teammates what it looks like to work hard and to spend 5 years going after like a national qualifier or like one of the bigger goals. Like, I want to make it to nationals, whether that's the 3,000 meter or the mile or the 1,500 meter. And I want to show my team what it looks like to do that. I want to show my teammates what it looks like to do that. But beyond that, like, I just want them to know that like I care for them, and I want them to know that I'm here if they want to talk. And like, that's like, I just want them to know that I was that guy that they could talk to if they needed to, and I was there working hard at practice. And I don't want to I don't want to feel intimidating. Sometimes I do kind of come off as intimidating, but with that, I really just want them to feel like they were able to talk to me whenever they wanted, and I was able to be a friend to them, and that's kind of what matters the most.
Not Pixar. So I'm going to stretch you here to find a new answer. What's
Okay,
the best idea or concept you've been chewing on recently?
dude, probably Pixar. No, I'm just playing. Uh, Best idea or concept I've been chewing on. Hmm. So I've been taking a lot of inspiration from like the way that Ryan Trahan makes videos, which is something that I've done for my entire life. Uh, my entire creative journey has been like, okay, what's Ryan doing? Let's try to like do something along those lines in my own space and figure out what underlying principles he's using to captivate an audience and to use those in my own creative endeavors. Um, so I think a lot of what I'm trying to do is make a YouTube format that feels approachable, that feels like people can tune into the videos and watch and feel like they've just spent some time with me and that they've enjoyed the time that they've spent with me and there was value that they gained from that. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. And it's not necessarily, I guess, a creative idea. It's more so a pursuit that I'm after. It's something that I'm trying to create but I don't know where I'm going yet. It's the discovery process. It's this I don't know what the finish line is, but I'm going to continue to work to try to just feel my way through it. Balance through action is going to be the way that I feel my way through this process of creating something that is approachable, that is new, that people are going to engage with, that people are going to enjoy, that is going to create value in their lives, whether this is about running or if it goes beyond running, if it goes into something else whenever I graduate. Like I don't know what life's going to look like after I graduate. I'm planning on running a marathon in June. That's going to be fun. I don't think I've announced that anywhere. So that's exciting. Going to run
Exclusive.
grandma's up in Duluth, but other than that, dude, I think that's really what I'm trying to do right now. Just make something that's approachable on YouTube. And YouTube has always been something that I've loved, and it's I feel like I have a new level of creativity behind what I'm trying to do, and a new set of intentions in this year that I'm trying to carry out throughout the entire year. So
It's a good way to close it out. We'll on the serious note, we'll close out
Mhm.
on the fun note with some practical rapid fires in relation to training. Give the people
Yeah.
some value. First one, what shoe are you currently training in the most?
So right now, I have a contract in New Balance, so I probably need to disclose that. But I train in the New Balance 1080 for most of my runs, and then like the New Balance Rebel for most of my like faster stuff. And every now and then I'll throw on the Super Comp Elites if I'm running something that's long and fast. And then I actually just got the spikes from New Balance, the MDXs, which I haven't worn them yet, but they look fire, and I'm super excited to wear those in like some track sessions and to race in them this weekend because I'm going for a mile this weekend, going back to Pittsburgh, Kansas, hoping to run in the 4.0s. It'll be my first time under
Let's go.
4:10 if I can make it happen, and I'm gonna put myself in the mix. I'm just gonna take a chance, and whatever happens there happens, and I'm gonna fight through it and leave everything on the track, and I'm gonna do it in the MDXs. So that's those are the spikes I'm running in, and then the like the 1080s are my daily trainer right now. That's where most of my mileage is logged.
Number two, what's your go-to recovery snack or meal?
Ooh, um, dude, after a hard workout, we'll get done at the track at like 5 ish on Tuesdays or whatever. Like after one of those longer training sessions where we're doing a lot of threshold work, and I will come back home, dude. If I have steak in the fridge, I will cook up a steak.
Most
I don't care
masculine
what
answer ever, but I love you for it.
steak and rice, and that's not really a snack, but dude, that's a meal right there. I feel that helps. That helps me feel normal again.
Number three, what's one part of your routine you swear by?
One part of my routine. Ooh, I don't know. I think it's kind of like the Graham Blanks mentality of like, yeah, I have a routine, but I don't like put too much into every like little thing that I do. It's more so about like the bigger picture of like the work you've put in the months leading in, as opposed to the little things that you're doing, like the way you make your maybe it's like the way I make my coffee. That's the routine I swear by. But other than that, it's there's not really like anything specific that I'm like, oh yeah, if I didn't do this, I would be screwed. It's more so just like I work hard on the track for months, and because I work hard on the track for months, that's what leads to results. And so that's the routine is hard work.
We'll do two more here. What's your go-to mantra during a tough race or workout?
Either run the mile you're in is one that I've used a lot, but I feel like recently it's just been, dude, I've just been turning my mind off. I'm not even thinking about anything.
Go to sleep, Mike
I'm like,
Smith
let's just
style.
work. Yeah, just go. And I'm just going to sleep. And I was like, let's just work and let's be like, I'm just telling myself to be calm, smooth. Let's just work. There was a in the middle of the 3K this past weekend. I had probably 800 or 900 meters to go, and or maybe 700 meters to go. And I was my thought process at that time, which at that point you're 2,300 meters in, and you're like, okay, this is like starting. This is hurting pretty bad, but I have to make a decision to go. And I was like, okay, what would Cole Hawker do right now? I was
Mm.
like, Cole would run really fast and he would be very calm running really fast. So I said, okay, I'm just going to try to be really calm and run really fast at the same time. And like that was my mentality. And so I just did that for the next 700 meters or whatever. And then for the last like 100, it was just everything I had to get across the line. And I think that's what made that race successful. So that was kind of mentality in it, but not necessarily a mantra. But maybe what would Cole do?
Last but not least, one more. What's one underrated tip for staying injury free?
So I get injured a lot, but it's maybe you shouldn't take advice from me. I haven't been injured in a while, but underrated tip for staying injury free. Mm. Dude, I don't even know. We've done a lot of banded warm-ups, and I feel like those have helped. So we've like activated our hips more, and whenever we activate our hips more, it feels like we're able to like actually run more efficiently, and so our muscles are kind of warmed up. And that was something that Tin Man did a lot too. Whenever I was there, they would do like banded activations for like all their stuff before their workouts. And so I think banded activations something we've incorporated recently into our training here at Mississippi College, and that's something that I think has helped a lot. We've also done like hurdle mobility and stuff before workouts. But yeah,
Brock,
dude,
privilege speaking with
I
you.
want to ask you a question,
Oh
dude.
gosh.
Yeah, dude, we're going in.
Hit
Here we
me.
go,
What
dude.
do you
So
want to
what
ask me?
I want break down your favorite part of the creative process in making that Footlocker video,
Ooh,
and
I
break
would
down the team.
say,
Talk about the team too.
yeah, I can only talk about two of the members. I can't talk
Okay,
about the third for reasons
that's
I'll
fine.
tell you off air.
Okay,
But we had two short form guys. One of them will not be named. The second is Jameson McDivitt. He works at the University of Florida. So talented. So any of the short form stuff you saw, what came from him, and then the other guy, and worked with them really closely on those pieces. And then the long form piece was with Peyton Gygax, who works for the NFL, but has a specific focus on the Green Bay Packers. And she crushes the short form stuff, but I love her creative talent and vision. And I was like, I really want to make a long form piece because you can only encapsulate so much on Instagram in like a 30 to 60-second video. So I was like, I want to do something long form and like document the 45th edition of the Foot Locker Cross Country National Championships. I would say my favorite part was the discussions leading into it, where like none of these individuals had their background in running is exclusively through me. And so like Peyton had never made a piece like that within running. And I think something a lot of media companies within running do a poor job of is hiring like media videographers within the sport of running. This is such a hot take, but I think we have the worst videographers within running. We have the best photographers in running. I think our photographers are second to none, but I think our videographers are lacking a lot of the training that these NFL, NCAA football type people get. And so, anyways, when you have the creative genius of these three individuals, but I'll talk to Peyton specifically here, and then you have my background of sport and love for Foot Locker, having watched it from like fifth grade religiously onward, it was my favorite part was like hopping on a phone call, being like, here's what Foot Locker is, because they had never heard that word before. And to Peyton being like, I mean, even after the race, after the boys race, it goes to this cinematic kind of like 30 to 45-second montage with this like old Italian music. And I can go back to a phone call where I was like, I really want to use this like old Italian type vibe and have like slow-mo shots and really like convey the emotion of cross country that anyone who has ever ran cross country can feel it through watching this part of the video. So to tell her that, and then on course to like get those shots, and then to see the finished product and just be like, boom, we nailed it. Like was super, super cool. So I'd say my favorite part of the creative process was honestly like the discussions leading into it. And it's a sign of like a talented team when you can give them the vision and direction and then they just execute even better than you could have hoped. So I think that was my favorite part. And then just like I feel like it's a piece that you feel a lot of emotion watching it. Like I've watched it. The self glaze is crazy, but I've watched it a ton of times, and I feel like I still get chills every time I sit down and watch it at like different points of the video, or like at the very end of the intro where I'm like, this is the 45th edition of the Foot Locker Cross Country National Championships. And then it starts playing song by Jake, JVKE. I just need some space with like the piano, and the piano starts out like really slowly. And then it goes from my logo, or Hoka's logo, the 45th edition logo, and then my logo. And then it just like goes right into the girls race. Like so many of those moments, I'm just like, this is just so sick. So um, I would say, I don't know if that answered your question, but those
Yeah,
were some of
dude, I just wanted to hear
the
about
meetings
that
before were
process.
so sick. Yeah, it was a lot of meetings beforehand. And then on the ground, it was like a lot of like figuring out in the moment, like running is so unpredictable. So like even the day before, like just like planning and scheming of like, okay, here's a good spot to get this shot. Here's an idea for this montage. Like, or even like I'm such a music aficionado, like picking the songs and like figuring out what songs we wanted to use to like convey the emotion of running was really, really cool. So, and then another final moment of the video that I loved that I didn't know happened actually was Tam, the kid who won, big underdog. When he's walking out of the finish line chute, I didn't know she got this, but he's like delusional.
Yeah.
Juan, who plays seconds, like pouring water on him, and he finds his high school coach, and he's like, "I've never run that hard in my life. Like, I've never run so hard." And I just like that's what I love to capture is like the raw emotion. He had no clue the camera was on him, and I thought that was
Mhm.
like so sick. And then that right into like the emotional like Italian music piece was pretty sick. So yeah, I'm so proud of that piece. And I'm like, I want to do that for more events that deserve it. So we'll see. Fingers crossed we get more of those opportunities.
Dude, I think that speaks a lot to whenever you were talking about having people from outside the sport who have a completely different lens and perspective on videography in general. Like if they usually shoot football, then now they're doing running, and it's like how are they? Their perspective is going to be so much different than someone who is in running. And like if someone was in running and started shooting football, that would be completely different. Like it's like the like you said, there's kind of a lack of like great videographers in the space. I mean, there's some that are like pretty good, I would
For
say.
sure.
Like
I
I
definitely
mean,
agree
I
with
feel like
that.
I feel like Nick Bear's built out a pretty good team of like those guys that
His
do like
team
all the
is
deep
the
learning
best
stuff.
actually at long form stuff. Like 40-minute
They are great.
pieces. The Nick Bear
Hmm.
team is better than anyone I know on YouTube, quite
Yeah.
frankly. Like it's Netflix style
Oh, it's
cinematography.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's people that are like good, but like if you took someone who has like historically been in running for like their entire life and put them in football, it would just be completely different. And I think
Yeah.
that just speaks to how everyone has their own perspective on based upon their past experiences, and those experiences are maybe some are good, some are bad, and because of that they have different creative outputs than someone else would, and it creates something that's completely different. Like you could have taken the exact same ideas that you had and given them to a team of three different people, and it would have been a completely different video that may have still been incredible. And it's like
Hmm.
it's just kind of it's so creativity is just so crazy because it has so many different ways that it can come to life that can still be effective. And everyone just has like their own perspective, and because they have that perspective, it's always something new and always has potential to be something different, which kind of breaks it, that which means it shouldn't feel confining. It should feel freeing in what you're creating, because it's like you can always create something that's new and something that's different, something that feels novel.
Right. Yeah, spot on. How I would put the difference between running videographers and like a football videographer is the expectation within NCAA, Division One, or NFL is you get the shot and it has to be posted within 10 minutes. Otherwise, it's irrelevant. Within running, if you get the shot and you post it in the next 2 days, you're fine.
Yeah.
um, the expectation and the training that comes underneath that expectation at these high level programs is second to none, to an extent that if anyone's out there listening and wants to be a creative within running one day, go be trained, go to your high school football team, because if you're at a track meet, someone will be like, someone with a camera, that's cool, I've never seen that before. but there's expectation that will happen in football. And I think you become great by being surrounded by like good expectation and greatness. So anyways, hopefully that was a sufficient answer for you, but
Yeah,
I could
that
talk
was
about it
great.
all day. Brock, appreciate the convo. Everyone go buy this Pixar book, go buy a Garmin watch, and go subscribe to the Daily Mile. Brock, I will see you soon. Appreciate you. Keep crushing it, and always appreciate the wisdom that you bring to our conversations every single time.
Dude, thanks for having me on.